Hi. Just had one of the sours from Modist, so I don't handle a lot of alcohol well. So if I stumble, apologies. I'll do my best to get through the speech. Hi, I'm Alan Tokuda. I teach the data modeling class now. I've been doing that for the last 6 years. Apparently, I was told that this is not how you do a title slide, that that's not how you write a title for a talk. So I guess I can be more formal, put some thought into it, and I came up with a more formal title for you. Because I wanted to tell you a little bit about teaching. Thanks for your time. Safety first. Just so you all are aware, before I start, I like to stab my friends with swords. So think about that carefully before you become my friend. Just to show you what this looks like. This is historic European martial arts. I don't know if I can sound here. Oh yeah, there we go. That's me a couple days ago fighting with my friend. I don't think I successfully stabbed him once in a few minutes. I'm still learning. It's a lot of fun. If anyone's interested, I can tell you more about it, but this is not a talk about sword fighting as much as I would love for it to be. Here's the full screen button. There it is. All right. This is supposed to be a talk about software, so let's talk about software. As always, we should start with the code and determine the requirements later. So let's just dive right into the code. What language is this? Anyone know? No. It's not Rust. It's not Kotlin.
Is it Swift?
Not Swift.
Is it nothing? Is it Takuda?
It's TypeScript. Which is such a cool language, right? It's cool for web developers like me. What is this error saying here? This is a warning from the TypeScript compiler.
Unnecessary assignment.
Unnecessary assignment. Well, how do you know it's not necessary? I just wrote one line of code and my compiler is already complaining to me. It's so impatient. No. Well, okay, so how can I fix this? Yeah, print it. Exactly. Perfect. Yes. Use the variable so the compiler stops warning me about it. But really, why is the compiler warning me about this in the first place? It's warning me because, as a human, I might forget to use it. I forget things. We all forget things. I've forgotten a few names before getting here. I'm working on it. And this is a talk about learning and forgetting. It's a talk about teaching. So let's go a little deeper. All right, what language is this? Technically, it should be TypeScript. But actually, the TypeScript compiler is very angry about this one. It's just JavaScript. Sorry to infect you further with the blight of JavaScript. But I don't think any of us can escape it anymore. The JavaScript pandemic. What's happening on line 1, firstly? In terms of memory, what's happening?
You're remembering the first 5 digits of pi.
We are remembering the first 5 digits of pi. I'm going to correct my little recording here. Yeah, we're remembering some numbers. And then on line 2, what's happening in terms of memory?
Making copies of it.
Making a copy, yeah. With a pointer. Is this by value or reference?
Depends on the language.
We don't know this language. How am I supposed to answer the question? In JavaScript, and in many languages, like Java and Ruby and Python, lots of languages, we make copies by reference. So we don't actually copy all the data. We make a reference to it so that we're not wasting space. We're trying not to waste space. We're trying to be efficient. And so on line 3, we push another number. We add another number to that list. what happens to A after line 3? Yeah, A and B stay the same because it's one object, two references to the same object. Okay, now, line 4, well, we're going to set A to null. What happens to B? Nothing. But what about on line 5? Find a neighbor and just talk to each other about what happens on line 5. Just take 30 seconds.
But yes.
JavaScript, how am I supposed to know what happened? So part of why I'm giving the talk, like Jay said, is because I have an opportunity to learn here. And I wasn't totally sure either, so I had to go try it. I did find that, in fact, I tried Chrome, but I think just about any JavaScript runtime would do garbage collection. Right, so we lose a reference. We lose our last reference to the object. And now there's no reason for the runtime to remember that data anymore. So you can imagine if line 1 had created an array that was 100 megabytes, you would want to get rid of that as soon as possible. Get that out of here. You don't want memory leaks if this is a long program. It's going to detect, by starting at the root of the application and doing what's called tracing, that it can do garbage collection, which is basically implicit, automatic forgetting. Very useful. In a C program, you have to malloc and you have to free, or you're going to have a memory leak. But in a dynamic language with garbage collection, you don't have to do that. Nice and convenient. What does this have to do with teaching? Does anybody have a guess of where I'm going with this?
You don't use it, you lose it?
Yes! How did you know that? If you don't use it, you lose it. Well, that's exactly what I have in the next slide, which is that machines will garbage collect information that's no longer reachable. Humans, our brains, will garbage collect information that is never retrieved. Retrieved as in, get it from memory, retrieve out of the database of our brain. Why should we remember anything that we've never asked our brain to remember? We automatically forget it. So as a student and as a teacher, this is something I wish I knew when I was much younger. I had to get into what's next to learn that. So, who remembers this gentleman? Professor John Carlos taught me a lot. I've been teaching the class ever since he passed away. And when I was starting to plan my teaching of the data modeling class, I was running through it, talking through my lesson plans, the material, the topics, and he stopped me. He said, "Stop. How are you going to make all this stick?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "If you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to go read this book before you do anything else." He was totally right. Fantastic book. I will tell you a little bit of some of the things I've taken from it. I hope you'll appreciate it. Highly recommend it. The Science of Successful Learning. Just a few things. There's a lot in there. A few really cool things. One is, this seems so obvious, but we don't do it, is actually talk about what you've learned with other people. So I'm doing the wrong thing here. I'm talking all at you. If I do something like watch an informational video or read a book, I will forget what I read or what I watched unless I talk about it with someone. Really powerful, because what you're doing is you're retrieving that information from memory and you're using it. To use it or lose it. Similarly, the testing yourself, and these two actually are very much the same. I will do this with a friend or with my wife. I'll just say, "Let me tell you about what I did today," or she will kindly ask me, tell me what you did today, or tell me about what you just learned. And I have an opportunity to actually form a memory from it, maybe actually have it stick. And so, these are powerful tools. But then this one's also very surprising, which is you can try something first and make errors before being taught the solution. I've already done that a couple times for you all today. Why does this work? Anyone have an idea why it helps to try something before being taught how to do it?
We learn better when we screw up. Oh, God, better not do that again.
Yeah, learn better when you screw up. Any other thoughts?
Provides context for the solution.
Context.
Priming the pump.
Priming the pump, what do you mean?
Like, you prime the pump, you go for the well, but it's dry. So you're
Yeah.
trying to retrieve, but you can't, and then eventually you can, and now the water comes out.
Right.
So if I try and I fail, I've tried to retrieve something effectively, I've like synthesized a retrieval, but I didn't have anything to retrieve, and now I do.
All true, yeah. So I think of myself, and I think of human beings like a function with inputs and outputs. And if we think about ourselves, you can think about everything we do in our life is a behavior, which is a function of the stimuli in our environment. I see a situation, I see a podium, I see a microphone, I know I lift it to my face. Too close. Except it's not that simple, right? What am I missing here? Say again?
Accumulated state.
Accumulated state, like what? Yeah.
And F expressed like this, but change over time. F of stimuli on a state.
Right.
Output behavior in a new state.
You guys are just helping me so much.
Differential function on the state.
Yeah, exactly. So, for example, your knowledge is accumulated state. So it's not just, I'm in this situation and I do this thing, and tomorrow in that same situation I do the same thing. Hopefully if we learn, we can behave better in a similar situation after learning, which is expanding our knowledge. What else? Well, you already said it, state, so I'm just gonna skip right to it. Because our mental state, our physical state affects our behavior. Do we behave the same way in the same situation, even with the same knowledge, on 2 different days? No. And it gets, you can keep going, but that's a good start. So how do we learn? Is that a function? Here's how I think of it, is we have, in an instant, we have a behavior based on our knowledge and our state, and stimuli. We can observe our own behavior given our knowledge, given our state and our stimuli, and then, critically, like Tyler was saying, we actually have to have a goal and an outcome, and have something to compare. We have to actually mess up, right? We have to not get it perfect, because if you get it perfect, then you did you learn anything?
Perfect, you didn't need to learn anything.
Then either you didn't need to, or you just didn't learn anything. Yeah. And so this is where the use it or lose it part is how can you have an outcome unless you did something? Impossible. You have to actually do something, not just retrieve the information. So you can't just sit there, retrieve the information. You can't just receive the information. You can't just sit and watch a video and expect to have learned anything. I always struggled with history. I got B's in all my history classes. I would read the book, I would listen, but I wouldn't participate in class, and then I would get a B and I would wonder why. And even to this day, I will watch YouTube videos on history, and I'll think, I understood every single word that you said. And if I try to explain to a friend what I just learned, I can't do it, because I didn't learn it. But actually, when I try to explain it, I actually do get something out of it. Does anyone recognize what kind of a diagram this is? Control. Yeah, feedback control system. Can you explain?
Well, basically, the signal on the input is being observed,
Yep, on the left, you're observing an input.
you know, and then the feedback elements either amplify or decrease, you know, it doesn't have to be positive, it could be a negative feedback and decrease things.
Right. So to dumb it down to someone like a golfer like me, let me just make it a golf example. So if I have a target, which is the golf hole, I'm trying to get my ball into the hole by swinging the club. I am the control system, and I'm taking feedback from my own observations of my own behavior. I'm going to swing the club. The ball is going to fly into a lake. My friends are going to laugh at me. That is the additional feedback signals. And actually that's quite important because emotion plays an important role in our state, which determines our learning. I often find I remember things the most when I've been insulted. I can never forget it. You know?
Do you insult your students then? Does that help?
I try not to. You can actually have positive emotions too. It is possible. You can praise people. And so with that feedback, you have the opportunity to learn. You have the opportunity to change the constants that multiply that signal that come across. You can change your own behavior and learn. Without that feedback, you have nothing. So then, coming back to, as a teacher, how can we make that happen? Not that any of you are interested in teaching. Love it if you were. Firstly, we have to make students feel safe making errors so they're willing to try the thing before they've been taught. And then we ask them to try the thing before they've been taught. So you have to normalize and make it okay to make errors, use the whiteboard, whatever, we'll work through it together. I like to ask the students to discuss what they learned, just like Professor Carlos used to do. Give frequent quizzes. This is not a popular thing. Very unpopular. Why do I do it?
Emotional pain.
I want as much pain as possible to strike the emotional effect. It's actually not the reason, though. It sometimes does help a tiny bit. That's not the real reason. The real reason is, again, retrieval. You know, we want to actually force yourself to use something. When you test, you finish that feedback cycle and you say, oh, I didn't get the thing. Why didn't I get it? Even if you study the same amount, studies shows in the book that with the same amount of studying, with a quiz you learn a lot more than if you didn't quiz yourself. It's pretty amazing. So not all students know this. Not all students will test themselves on their free time. So give the quizzes. 5 points. Makes a huge difference. And then interact with the students instead of lecturing at them. So I'm already doing more lecturing than I'm comfortable with here at you all. I actually use fewer slides than this in 3.5 hours of teaching an MSSE class because I'd rather have more interactive exercise than talking at my students. Sometimes I'll only use 5 slides for the 3 hours. Say yes a lot. That's part of making students feel safe, is that showing them that they are doing things right. Really important. Finding ways to say yes. And then working through the material conversationally, giving constant feedback, letting them finish that cycle. I also like to flip the classroom, which is have them watch lectures at home and then we can focus on exercises in class. Anyone seen this movie? No. Looks like it's from the 90s, but it's actually from 2005, Ryan Reynolds. It's kind of cringe at times, but it's actually really inspiring. It's just like the ideal young teacher who comes in and disrupts how a school operates completely. Everyone rethinks how teaching should be. I just find it really inspiring. I like the movie. So, all this to say, teaching with MSSE is an option. You've seen Sanjay right over there, he smiles. Talk to me or Sanjay if you're interested, because, great street cred. So many connections you can make. You can learn your material really, really super well. I think it's a lot of fun. I think the hardest part is the first year, and once you get the hang of it, then you can kind of flow with it. Andrew, would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think you really got to make it to a third semester teaching it.
Third, yeah.
I stopped at 2, but no, actually, I think you really do have to make it to a third to really have the experience on.
Yeah, I think the second, like my first year, I worked all summer getting ready. I worked honestly too hard on it, and then the second year, I'm like, all right, I think I know what I'm doing, but I want to make it so much better. The third year, I kind of was cruising, and now I'm up to year 6, so it's been a lot of fun. It's great. So I just wanted to shout out about it. Good opportunity. That's all I got. Any questions before I hop off here? Come talk to me. I'd love to. And that's all I have.